Welcome back, adventurer. Today's creature has been described as a screaming root baby born of human seed. If that's something you're suddenly interested in, then come. Pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Wondrous praise upon you, adventurer. Come, sit down. Let me fix you a swan pond and spin yarn of our first creature, the mandrake from European Folklore. And like many other creatures we've covered, this goes by a few names. Mandragora, if you're feeling scholarly. Witch's umbrella, if you fancy a bit of flair. But around these parts, folks call it what it is, a root. Sounds pretty harmless, right? Like something you might find in one of me stews. But don't let the name fool you. This root's got more in common with people than plants. The tomes say it grows deep underground, curled up tight like it's sleeping. And when you dig it up, it ain't your usual knot of roots. No, this magical plant looks like a person. Not a full-sized one, mind. Small. About the length of a forearm, I'd say. But with all the markings of humanity twisted into its shape. The stories say they've got arms, legs, even a little head, formed by supernatural will. And it may surprise you to know that there's a male and female type. The male Mandragora is the more common one. Pale as bone, sometimes with a long, twisted beard of fine root hairs. And it smells sweet, like fruit or fresh blossom, with a touch of earth. And it has broad, rounded leaves. Whereas the female root, that's the rare treasure. The few, arguably lucky bunch, to return one of these, say its flesh is dark, almost black. And instead of a beard, the female variant possesses a head of bushy hair and a scent unlike anything you'll find. It's only ever been described as thick and heavy. So I see that green thumb of yours twitching, adventurer. Well, you won't find Mandragora sprouting in a tight little garden bed. These roots don't care for sunlight or songbirds. They thrive in darker places. And I ain't just talking about the shade. Folks familiar with this one of your magical 5 a day say it's created by soaking blood into the soil. But not just any blood'll do. The blood, sweat and other fluids must come from criminals, murderers, or the condemned. And it's rumoured that blood spilled from bodies swinging on the gallows is best. But this is a plant after all, so really any fluids will do, as long as they're bodily. We're not growing something entirely plant out here, it's just Mandragora. There's a spot out east of here, the old Gallow Hills. Locals call it the hanging grounds, where the trees used to hold a more sinister purpose, before the moss swallowed it all up. I've had adventurers come back white as bone, swearing they heard crying beneath the soil. They didn't dare dig. Too scared, I reckon. But it's not just gallows. Oh no, battlefields, execution sites, anywhere the dying bleed into the ground. As long as they're bad, a Mandragora will grow. There's even whispers of witches' gardens. Secret greenhouses where folks in the occult deliberately plant mandrakes with we'll just say they use fresh materials. In short, adventurer, if you know of any death grounds nearby, or spot a few rough sorts looking far too pleased with themselves after skulking round a bush, best not go poking at that dirt. Could be you're standing in Mandragora country. Are you ready to hear what this curious root can do? First, you'll want to know how to find one. Visiting areas where the corrupt have died is always a good port of call. But if you're lacking these eerie sights, then some folks say all you need is to seek the aid of a hedgehog or tortoise. Once you've found one happy to cooperate, they'll lead you right to the root. And in pretty much every book I've found on the Mandragora, you can brush the leaves, even disturb the dirt around it a little bit, but the minute you dig and yank at this human-adjacent plant, it'll shriek, A high-pitched, raw-sounding shriek. And it won't just hurt your ears a bit. It cuts through into the bones. Had a couple of patrons say they've seen men drop dead on the spot from hearing one. Brains bust and blood pouring from every hole in the head. But would you believe? It's worse for the ones that live. Driven to madness by the cries of the dirt. Never truly the same again. Once the Mandragora is pulled and settled, it ceases to be of any harm. Now you've got your hands on possibly the most versatile and valuable root you'll ever lay eyes on, given they haven't been rattled out your skull. Found a scroll on magical plants. It says you'll need to take your muddy prize to your local witch. They'll then properly wash the Mandragora in wine. White or red, doesn't seem to matter, and wrap it in fine silk for safekeeping. Now, it's ready to be utilised. And boy does it have its uses. When asking around, it seems the most common use for a Mandragora is as a talisman or charm to help protect you and ward off evil spirits, or as a conduit for good luck. You can even separate the upper part of that root to help widen the range of these protections. Many texts say you'll need to pop it into a red bag and simply hide it in your home. You can even stitch parts of the root into your clothes for a bit of protection on the go. And if you dry a Mandragora and place it on your mantelpiece, it's rumoured to bring happiness and prosperity to the entire household. And, as an added bonus, it'll prevent demons from entering your home. Or if you're like me, partial to a spot of coin, then you'll love this. Some older legends say the Mandragora possesses ties to riches, that they've got a knack for attracting fortune. Or if one's placed atop some coin, it'll even duplicate it. Sounds far-fetched, I know, but stranger things be true. Of course, I'll need to confirm this myself. So if you happen to stumble on one in your travels, my golden-souled adventurer, be a mate and drop it by the tavern. After it's finished screaming, of course. I'll even throw in a drink. Maybe two, if the legends are true. What I found most curious about these human-shaped roots, aside from the screaming, is that ordinary folk could, and often would, turn them into wee dolls in service of the home. Like tiny servants, so to help with the mundane, like sweeping floors, tidying shelves, even answering questions put to the household. Now if you're of the arcane persuasion, you know, the rune scribbling, robe wearing sort, then I reckon you'll find this next bit mighty interesting. Had an alchemical philosopher in the other day, went by the name Ryan Rigoli, and after a few pints, he wouldn't stop talking about these roots. Said mandrake weren't just some screaming root. No, it could be fashioned into a homunculus and sealed in a glass bottle to serve or even stand in for a magician. And there's a very specific method to it that ain't pretty. That fella Ryan said the root needs cleaned first, dressed, and then over time, let's just say the magician would feed it with his own essence. Human seed, right into the Mandragora over a course of days or even weeks. Strange world when your assistant is half root and half you, isn't it, adventurer? But here's the rub. Having one of these, whether it's a helpful servant or a bottled homunculus, was enough to land you in hot water faster than spilling meat in the Lord's boots. During the witch trials, more than a few were marched off to the stake just for letting their neighbours see that little critter by the hearth. So I'm sure you've caught on by now, adventurer. Left alone, the Mandragora is no trouble, but once plucked, it's as deadly as any fiend that slinks through the woods. This ain't some silly critter for kids to repot in a herbology class. It's a valuable and deadly creature. So would you like to know how to harvest one of these without the whole being driven mad side effect? Well, it's simpler than you think. All you'll need is a dog. Or it could be a horse. Really, any strong companion will do. Even a naive party member. And a very long length of rope. Then just tie one end to the Mandragora, the other to your party member, get yourself to a very safe distance, and get them running. The Mandragora will shriek, so your dog, horse or party member will die, but you'll be safe, and one root richer. I suppose if the rope's long enough, your companion may survive, but you'll need a hell of a lot of rope. And if you're not up for sacrificing your dog, some herbologists said these roots can only be harvested on sunset, while others argue that a circle must be drawn round the plant 3 times with a sword or wand, and once it's unearthed, you must immediately cut it while facing west to avoid any negative side effects. Now, if you're feeling a little greedy, then in order to obtain a second root, you must dance around the plant while speaking as much lewd talk about sex as you possibly can. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything on what to do if you're looking for a third or fourth root, so you're going to have to get creative with that one. And with that, we're finished with our creature for the day. We've learned that if you've got some old wrinkled roots in your freeze box, pop them on your mantle. One might end up bringing you a little fortune. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern, so grab yourself one more drink for the road, and until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird